Deep in the rolling hills of Crumbly-on-the-Hill, the evening fog rolled in thick and creamy, wrapping the village in a cozy embrace. Lavender-scented smoke billowed from the chimneys, wafting gently through the cool autumn air, creating an aromatic dance of tranquility. As the stars twinkled like tiny diamonds, Crumbly-on-the-Hill whispered promises of peaceful nights. This enchanted place seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a story to unfold beneath the shimmering canopy of twilight. In this charming village lived Arthur, a gentle soul clad in a comically oversized emerald green sweater. The soft fabric knitted warmth into his frame, while the delightful smell of cinnamon toast clung to him in a sweet embrace. His round spectacles perched precariously on his strawberry-shaped nose, giving him a look of endearing clumsiness. Arthur was a creature of habit, moving through life with a whimsical charm that even the stars admired. Arthur's only companion was Mochi, his cat, whose judgmental gaze mirrored that of a retired librarian. Mochi, with her fluffy, regal fluff and twitchy tail, seemed to inspect every move he made, making sure his life remained delightfully interesting. Her expressive face told tales of disdain and amusement, especially when Arthur's clumsiness led to a faint clatter. Together, they formed a whimsical duo, a comedic pair dancing through the rhythms of quiet life. On a crisp autumn evening, Arthur felt the need for adventure and decided to take the rusty whistle, his vintage bicycle, for a midnight spin. The bicycle, with its wobbly wheels and charming rust, held stories of past escapades long forgotten. Arthur adjusted his spectacles, a mix of anticipation and excitement bubbling within him. As he nestled his hands on the handlebars, a sense of freedom washed over him like warm caramel on a chilly night. Pedaling under the silver moon, Arthur felt as though he was riding through a dream. The moon hung high, a dazzling coin painted against a backdrop of navy blue velvet, illuminating his path. The air wrapped around him in soft tendrils of cold silk, refreshing and invigorating his spirit. It was a perfect night for reflection, as the world became a magical blur of autumn leaves and distant sounds of the village settling down. Just as the ride felt blissful, calamity struck. Arthur's steering wheel hit a loose cobblestone with a jolt that sent shivers down his spine. With a startled yelp, a sound reminiscent of a squeaky toy, he swerved toward the village's pride and joy, the enormous Gourd of Glory. Time seemed to slow as he watched the pumpkin, majestic and plump, loom closer, heralding an impending disaster. With a heavy thud, the giant pumpkin fell from its velvet-draped pedestal, rolling like a colossal orange ball of mischief. The sound of its descent echoed through the night, a comical yet dread-filled symphony. It bounced and tumbled down the hill, the villagers' gasps trailing behind like whispers of an impending calamity. Laughter and dread mingled in the air as they braced for what would happen next. Arthur's heart raced as he witnessed the pumpkin splash into the duck pond, sending ripples across the water. The sound was a wet, squashing finale, punctuating his accident like a cruel punchline. Panic gripped him, sharp and prickly, as guilt wrapped around his heart like a tight, suffocating hug. What had he done? The weight of his foolishness loomed large as he stared in horror at the sinking orange ship. In a frenzy, Arthur pedaled away from the scene, his legs feeling like overcooked noodles. The village blurred behind him, each street a reminder of his calamity. He felt the cool air whip past his face, carrying away his sanity with every frantic stroke of his pedals. Home was his only sanctuary, where he could hide beneath the covers and pretend none of this had ever happened. Finally, home! Arthur burst through the door, throwing himself onto his bed and burying under 4 warm duvets. The soft fabric cocooned him like a baby, shielding him from the judgment of the world outside. As he lay there, he tried to convince himself that this was all just a dream, an absurd, twisted nightmare. Yet the tightness in his chest told him otherwise, keeping him awake in the cozy darkness. Morning light crept into Arthur's cottage, bringing with it a sense of dread. He reluctantly pulled himself from the plush warmth of his bed, his thoughts still hazy from sleep and last night's chaos. When he finally checked his Wi-Fi connection, his breath hitched as he noticed the new network name. "I saw what you did." This was no ordinary morning. It was a chilling reminder of his pumpkin disaster, a cruel twist on his peaceful life. Just as his toast fell butter side down, Arthur could hardly comprehend the absurdity of his situation. There it was, the accusation bold and bright on his screen, confirming his worst fears. His heart raced with humor and paranoia as he imagined Mrs. Gable, the sweet elderly neighbor, viewing him as a pumpkin pusher. Guilt washed over him, crafting a storm of ridiculous thoughts in his mind as he stared at the digital proclamation. With curiosity tinged by dread, Arthur couldn't resist peering through his lace curtains. From behind the delicate fabric, he spied Mrs. Gable, her hands a flurry of motion, knitting tiny sweaters for pigeons, just as she always did. Each needle clicked rhythmically, a whimsical soundtrack to his growing anxiety. Every time a leaf skittered past the pavement, his heart leaped, pondering if she could somehow see into his guilty soul. Suddenly, Mrs. Gable caught sight of him, and to his dismay, waved cheerfully with a twinkle in her eye. The warmth of her smile sent a jolt of panic through Arthur as his instincts kicked in. He dove for cover. In a clumsy motion, he hit his head on the radiator with a resounding thump, underscoring the chaos of this morning's events. Oh, how ridiculous he felt, his heart racing with embarrassment and fear in equal measure. As Arthur ventured out for a walk, every friendly nod felt like a glaring spotlight on his guilty conscience. Strolling past the townsfolk, he could almost feel the words "guilty" scrawled across his forehead in neon ink. He caught the glances of neighbors, their smiles wavering as they registered the empty pedestal where the Gourd of Glory once stood. Each step felt heavier than the last, as the weight of his secret only grew in the crisp autumn air. There, by the empty pedestal, stood the mayor, gazing at the ground with a mournful expression. Arthur's heart sank further. The sight was piercing, as the mayor's sorrow seemed to pierce right through him. The Gourd of Glory's absence felt like a giant hole in the heart of the village, and Arthur was its hidden culprit. Within him, a storm of regret brewed, darkening the autumn sky further yet. As Arthur finally gazed into the pond, his heart ached at the sight of the pumpkin, now a sunken orange ship adrift in murky water. The gentle ripples distorted its once proud form, highlighting the bitter irony of his mistake. It was a sad yet comical sight, a sinking gourd embodying his guilt and anguish. Beneath the cool autumn breeze he stood, a solitary figure grieving for both the pumpkin and his own mishap. Determined that he couldn't live a lie anymore, Arthur turned back to his cottage with a sense of urgency. With trembling hands, he began to bake apology scones, delicate morsels filled with charm and sweetness. Flour danced in the air like tiny snowflakes as he mixed ingredients together, prioritizing the act of atonement over his lingering fear. Each stir was a promise to face his mistakes head-on, fueled by determination and a hint of nervousness. With a plate of warm, fragrant scones cradled in his hands, Arthur stepped out his door, his knees trembling in sync with his spiraling thoughts. Each step toward Mrs. Gable's house felt monumental. The possibilities weighed on him like a sack of potatoes. What if she was indeed a tech-savvy vigilante? The thought made his heart race faster with throes of uncertainty. This walk was a journey of redemption, one that was as daunting as it was necessary. At last, Arthur reached Mrs. Gable's front door, his heart pounding loud enough to drown out the soft rustle of leaves. The door opened, revealing the sprightly old woman with a twinkle in her eye and a welcoming smile. In that moment, Arthur's fears hovered in the air, swirling and churning as he prepared to face whatever awaited him inside. The air was thick with anticipation as they stood, two souls bound by a pumpkin misadventure. With trembling hands, Arthur finally admitted his pumpkin-pushing mishap and revealed the mysterious Wi-Fi name. Tears of embarrassment threatened to spill from his eyes as he poured out his confession, longing for forgiveness. Mrs. Gable listened, a gentle smile dancing on her lips, her eyes sparkling with mischief. It felt cathartic to finally say it aloud, the weight lifting with each word spoken. Then came the joyous revelation. Mrs. Gable burst into laughter. She wasn't mad at Arthur at all. The Wi-Fi name was simply a light-hearted joke about the way he had been peeking through his curtains. It turned out Mochi was the real culprit for the pumpkin's fall, having played alongside a playful cat of hers. The air filled with laughter, washing away the tension and sorrow, transforming their shared misery into a beautiful moment of connection. Arthur and Mrs. Gable settled down with steaming cups of tea and scones on the table, the atmosphere now thick with warmth and laughter. As they reminisced about the antics of cats, the Wi-Fi name returned to Gable's garden, a sense of normalcy blooming once more. In that cozy cottage, the two found a shared understanding of silliness, mistakes, and friendship. A new chapter of their lives opened, filled with laughter and camaraderie. As the night settled over Crumbly-on-the-Hill once more, Arthur returned to his cottage, his heart light with joy. He snuggled beneath his duvets, the sweet scent of scones lingering in the air, filling him with contentment. With visions of cozy camaraderie and laughter dancing in his dreams, he let the tranquility of the night wrap around him like a warm hug. "Sweet dreams," he whispered to the stars, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring.